What's going on, everybody? We have a ton of baseball that we have got to talk about because the trade deadline has come and passed, and it was a busy one for Arizona. And for that reason, we got to bring Ben on. We got to talk all about it. Ben, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It was a wild trade deadline for the Arizona Diamondbacks, but
Yeah, it was a busy one kind of across the league, it felt like, but the D-backs, obviously, one of the big teams, one of the more active teams making some monster trades. Three really ones that kind of shook things up a lot. We talked about it, I mean, kind of following throughout the year. It was going to be tough for this team to compete just for the fact of how good their division was. And at a certain point, you might as well call this the Dodger effect. If you're going to be chasing after them, you're going to have to press a button at some point that just says we got to get some young talent in. And so they make a lot of trades. I figure you want to start with the Suarez one, which feels like one of the biggest names kind of on the free agency that did end up moving.
it hurts.
He was a guy that was really kind of coming to his own. It felt like was really kind of taking off here right before the trade deadline, but he ends up getting sent to the Mariners. They get first baseman back, a couple of pitching prospects. How do you feel about this trade? And I guess in the open market at this point, is it the right move for them to start looking at prospects and just say that we need to kind of work on our farm system a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, pitching has just been such a glaring issue for so long with this ball club. I mean, once the writing was on the wall after the All-Star break, you just kind of knew that dominoes were going to start to fall. Gino being the biggest one for sure. He becomes the first player to get traded with 35 home runs. That is
That hurts.
insane. But I remember when Gino first came to the Diamondbacks in 2023, he did not have a good start. It was one of those things where he had to fight to get to where he was. He mentioned how much this city means to him and how much this experience, and even later in his career, has not only rejuvenated him, but given him that fire back. He's been around for a while. Now he goes back to Seattle where he's played before. He got a huge ovation over there, just kind of showing the type of guy he is on and off the field. But losing Gino, Levin Longoria retires. You bring in Gino Suarez. He was kind of the guy that you brought in to replace Longoria. Now that the Diamondbacks don't really have a lot of hope for this year. And with the injuries they've sustained to Corbin Burns, Justin Martinez, and AJ Puck, this might not be, even next year is going to be affected as well next season. So the Diamondbacks are realizing that a lot of these guys that free agents next season know that as well. And so they realize they might not want to come back here. It's a business at the end of the day, but losing Gino Suarez for this ball club is pretty monumental.
Not just kind of the offensive impact that you lose from him, but he was a good locker room guy. There's a lot that's there also where you feel comfortable when you have him, you're able to write him into and stuff. And like,
Mhm.
it needed to happen, the selling off pieces, I guess, but it's always tough. Well, the message that sends to everybody else. And like, now you look down at the fact that you still got a half a season to play. And it's like, well, guys, like,
Yeah, when Christian Walker was here hitting 30, 31 home runs a season, we were like, God, we got a home run hitter. And now since since the 2024 All-Star break, Gino's hit 56 home runs, and that puts him third behind Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. And so having that bat was key to the Diamondbacks' success in a lot of ways. Now that you're gonna lose that, you're gonna have to find that production elsewhere. I mean, I remember when manager Torey Lovello came out and said about, I would say a week and a half ago, he came out and said something along the lines of, when you have guys like Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo, and Gabriel Moreno, and you have a core of those guys, I feel confident that you're going to have a good chance to go out and put yourself in a position to make the postseason every year. And while I agree with that, having those pieces that Gino was, and the production that he had, you're gonna have to find other ways to do it. I mean, you get back Locklear, Tyler Locklear. 24-year-old number 9 prospect in the ML Mariners pipeline system, according to MLB Pipeline. And he hits very well in AAA. He has shown that he needs to take a couple more steps to get to the major leagues. I think the Diamondbacks have seen a lot of those players recently. I think Jordan Lawler could be very well one of those guys where you see him in AAA, you go, wow, this guy is going to be a stud, and then he just can't seem to find his footing at the big leagues up in the majors. But only time will tell. I know they really have their eyes on Locklear. When I heard that the Mariners were calling him up because they were in Sacramento against the Athletics, I kind of had a feeling. I'm like, well, the Diamondbacks are going to Sacramento to play the Athletics this weekend, so there might be a reason why they're calling him up to go on to Sacramento. But so it'll be interesting. It's going to be one of those trades where you're going to look back on and kind of what could have been different.
Yeah, absolutely. They do, like you said, though, they still keep kind of their young core, which is obviously massive. And then if you can add in some prospects, maybe you get kind of the timeline close to what you would like to say in a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, where you like all these arms are now at that point where they're ready and everything. And maybe at that point you make your push and you make a run, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Another big trade, obviously, with the Brewers. They moved Shelby Miller, who was one of the really hot commodity pieces, as a prospect pitcher that was there. And arguably as an added bonus, you're able to kind of get off of Jordan Montgomery's contract as well. Was making $25 million for a guy that had an ERA north of 6. So pretty valuable. I mean, I always feel really weird whenever you talk about contracts in baseball without a salary cap. It's like, it ain't my money. Like, I mean, it's whatever. Like, you could be paying him $100 million. Like, it's the same to me versus $5 million. Like, it ain't gonna change nothing, I guess, necessarily. But that is a lot of money to be shelling out to a guy that was not performing to that value. But they get some guys back in that trade that we're waiting to see, I guess. But Miller, that's tough. Losing Shelby's tough. I mean, he was one of the lone bright spots in what was a pretty bubbling bullpen right there. And how do you feel about it? I guess, I guess
I'll start with I do love salary cap conversations too. Just as long as it's not in front of Bryce Harper. I think we should be should be good.
To the commission.
Hey man,
He's
good on you, kid. Good on you. I mean,
got some brass ones on him.
I mean,
always has, but to the commissioner is a wild
Bryce's
move.
Feeling of get on or get left, and teams like the Padres and the Mets showed this trade deadline they're willing to hop on and not get left. But yeah, Shelby Miller, God, what a 360 he did with the Diamondbacks. I remember for years we were talking about that Shelby Miller trade originally and just thinking that might have been the worst trade in Diamondbacks history. And now when he came back and has just done what he's done this season for Arizona, I don't think anybody, I think people expected him to have a role this season, but to do as well as he's done, he now goes to Milwaukee. Milwaukee has just been one of the best teams in the league as of late. It kind of surprised me. The Brewers were standing same path. The Cubs weren't really making a lot of noise, and I kind of had a feeling, the Brewers I know they must really like what they have over there right now, hitting wise and defensive wise. You don't really want to change anything up. There's a lot of momentum over there, but you had a lot of prospects. And I said, if you feel like you're in a win now mode and you overtook the Cubs, you look like one of the best teams in the league as of right now. Why not trade some of that, or try and go out? And they didn't even have to give up. They just had to take on Montgomery's contract. And then you got a great new arm in Shelby Miller that could very well help them. So I was thinking of, get rid of some of your prospects, and they didn't have to do that. But yeah, Diamondbacks saved about $3 million, get rid of Jordan Montgomery. That was all Ken Kendrick. I remember when he came out and said, I wanted Montgomery, I vouched for him. I told him, yeah, I'll pay him. That was a huge mistake. I think Kendrick's probably not going to be doing that going forward. Knowing that, I'm sure there's guys that he likes, and him and Hazen will have good conversations. But yeah, that was definitely, the situation just wasn't getting better. They gave him opportunity after opportunity, and it just was not happening. I think he might have some sort of role in Milwaukee, but Shelby Miller will definitely be out there helping them out.
Shelby, ninth in the NL, or he was on ERA under 2. And again, like,
He's been a
hasn't
step.
exactly been the best season for the bullpen for the D-backs. So, I mean, he was one of the guys that was actually kind of really performing for them. And so, again, like, if you can get those sure-armed guys to come out of the pen, that's such for teams like, the Brewers that are wanting to make a run, like, you gotta have that. But it was a lone bright spot. So another tough guy to watch kinda walk out the door, and it
No, it definitely was, and, the Diamondbacks bullpen, I mean, not we can go back, the World Series running after with Miguel Castro, Silvino Bratos, and out there, the bullpen has just not been there, and then earlier this season, you had JP Fires and had more than 30 pitchers on this roster, before the All-Star break, so, it was a revolving door, a carousel of guys getting on and getting off, doing a couple laps, and he just could not find anybody to get any consistency. Kevin Ginkel tried to come back there. He looked like a shell of himself. So I think when the Diamondbacks realized, like, hey, we're going to be sellers at this deadline, you needed to go out and get some pitching prospects. That was the number one thing. With the extensions that they gave out this season already, the Flott extension, the Marte extension, the Perdomo extension, Moreno, making sure these guys are solidified for the future. You have to fix the most glaring issue, which is the bullpen. And so, you know, the Shelby Miller trade really stings, but you're hoping that you can get back a ton of other prospects that in the next 2 to 4 years are going to come up and help this team in more than one way.
You talk about the need for pitching prospects. They make that happen with the Merrill Kelly trade. So they send him to the Rangers. They get 3 solid prospect pitchers coming back, which is kind of exactly what the doctor ordered in this situation. They get the number 5, the number 9, the number 13 prospects for them. 2 lefties, a righty. Overall, again, like, Merrill Kelly was a name that a lot of people were interested in, that were making calls and kind of looking after. And I feel like they did a really good job of at least shopping him in finding a trade that made great sense for them. Again, like, a quality player that you hate watching quality players leave your organization, but they got 3 prospects that can help you sooner rather than later and in a position of need for this franchise. I felt like this was a great trade for the Diamondbacks.
I was a massive fan of this trade. Merrill Kelly is one of the most amazing pitchers the Diamondbacks have had. I mean, he's not only from Desert Mountain High School, ASU guy. I mean, he's from Arizona, grew up loving this team as well. At coming here after the KBO, playing in the KBO, Merrill has just been one of those guys, face of the franchise for pitching, fan favorite, and has garnered the respect around the league. And to show that he was one of the top 10, a lot. I know Bleacher Report had him as number 2 at one point for top free agent signings for this next upcoming season. And so I know a lot of guys were talking about him, and there's a possibility that as he is a free agent, this could be a rental that he could come back to the Diamondbacks.
Come on back. Come on back.
So that's what makes this trade even better, in my opinion. But looking at the guys you got back, Cole Drake, I mean, 25 years old, Double A Frisco. He had 12 starts this year. Had a 4-3 record with a 2.44 ERA, 2.44 ERA. He's looked locked in. I mean, he's one of those guys where the Diamondbacks saw real potential, and sooner rather than later. And if you can stack up guys like that for the future, barring injuries, that's exactly what the Diamondbacks need right now in this moment. Mitch Bratt, the number 9 prospect from the Rangers, by MLB Pipeline, 2-time MILB organizational all-star in 2022 and 2023.
Both, which is also really nice.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? He was like the third best Canadian prospect in the 2021 draft class, and he was one of those guys where he's very thought highly of. It sounded like at some points Merrill might have been going to Boston, and so there were a lot of other trade rumors for the Diamondbacks to hold out, stand tough, and get three solid prospects, and also in the third with David Hageman. I mean, he's low A Hickory at a 3.52 ERA, but he's one of those guys that's going to make the move up to Double A sooner or later. And he's 22 years old, young kid, but he the 2024 draft out of West Virginia, the Rangers took him, and I know they were really high on him as well. For the Rangers to give up these three big players, they're kind of showing that they're in win now mode. They're looking at teams like Houston. They're looking at teams like the New York Mets and the Padres, and they go, if we want to compete, and even if we get to the World Series, and we got to go through the Yankees, and the Red Sox are looking tough too. There's a lot of a lot of teams that the Texas Rangers are going to have to go through.
For potentially, again, a lone player, a guy that you're not necessarily going to have for a long time. So, a bit of a gamble on their part, but also speaks to how close they think they might be. Um, but I tell you what, when you find a team that thinks they're close, those are the great teams to make trades with because they're willing to shell out a lot to try and get over the hump, which is why I look at this and I think this was a win. Of all the trades, look at that one. I'm saying that one is the one that, they should feel, D-back fans should be pretty excited about the pieces they got back.
Definitely.
Truth is sometimes on trade deadlines, it's not necessarily the trades that you do make, it's the ones that you don't that end up being kind of influential and massive as well. And Zach Allen was a name that was being shopped, and there's a lot of people that are interested. The Red Sox also one of them. And it felt like for a while that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when and to who and for what. But the trade deadline comes and passes, and he ends up staying in Arizona. How do you feel about it? Do you think that there was a trade out there that they should have just pulled the trigger on and kind of made it happen? Or is this one where, maybe it's a blessing to still have him here and kind of figure it out as we go now?
Gallen has been one of Arizona's faces as well. I mean, the 2023 World Series run, he was in Cy Young contention. He has the ability to be an elite pitcher in this league. This season hurt his trade stock so badly. I mean, unless we forget, he was the opening day pitcher over Corbin Clemens.
Wow.
And Torey Lovello and Mikey, and that was a huge decision. They believed in Zach Gallen so much. And that first series in New York, oh man, he looked lights out. It was one of those, oh, Zach is back, fully back. The fall from grace that he had this season, I just don't think the Diamondbacks were able to even get remotely what they wanted for Gallen. They think the world of Zach. They think very highly of Zach, and they weren't just going to let him go for nothing. I think a lot of teams were kind of knowing that he's on the down slope this season, just having a down year. And they weren't willing to give up prospect. You weren't going to get what you got from Merrill Kelly for Zach Gallen. And a lot of teams, I think the Diamondbacks come out and said, we want and need pitching prospects. And like you mentioned earlier, teams that are in win now mode, you might be able to take advantage of them. Merrill Kelly, you are able to do that with because he's been a solid starter all season for the Diamondbacks. Zach Gallen has just looked lost at times out there. And it's unfortunate, but now it also kind of opens the door for him to stay in the desert for a little while longer. I mean, he knows what he can do here. He's talked about certain opportunities. His agent is Scott Boras, where they just did a whole deal with Corbin Burns. I know he's kind of notorious to push his players to enter free agency and get them the most that they can get. So I know that will probably end up happening, but with Gallen's value the way it is right now, I can't see a lot of teams paying him what he wants. And there's a very good chance that because of the way this season has gone, he might just stay in Arizona for a little while.
There's a disconnect between what he would like, what the Diamondbacks want to get back if they were to trade him, and what everyone else knows kind of his worth is right now. And you know, you got to have a little bait on the hook if you're gonna go out and try and get a fish. You got to have a little bait, and there wasn't much left on that line right there. And
No, it's unfortunate, but Zach stays in Arizona, and I'd like to see him turn over a new leaf of the last 2 months of the season. He's able to go out and show what he's able to do. This could be, light a fire under Gallon. It could be an eye opener, knowing that okay, my trade value is not there. I have not. If I'm going to go into free agency and I want to, get paid what I think I rightfully deserve, because if Gallon was a free agent after that 2023 season, he would have.
been sitting pretty. I would have loved to have been his agent.
So he recognizes that, and Gallon has the ability. He has the talent. He has the mindset. He knows what it takes to be not just an opening day starter over Corbin Burns, but to be an elite pitcher, Cy Young contender. It's in my opinion, I think it's been a down year for Gallon. I wouldn't surprise me at all if he bounced back.
I think that's also, I mean, that's just the big reason I think that this was a good thing for the Diamondbacks, because you don't want to sell low. Like, bottom line is, especially if you're wanting to get prospects back, if you're wanting to try and build up your foundation again, you can't sell guys low. You got to take it on the chin and give them an opportunity to try and up their trade value, and just keep kind of pushing them out there until there's some value there, or move past them and realize it's not going to hit. But if you're not getting, I've never been the big proponent of at least get something for them. I've been find guys, develop them. If you need to trade them, trade the guys where you're going to get something that's of value back, and build that way, and then live with the ones. Because if you're the Diamondbacks and you're not really planning on, you're selling, you're not thinking you're going to make the postseason, you're not thinking you're doing anything this year, what's the worst that's going to happen? What's the worst? Like, either he ups his trade value and he gets something going here in the back half of the season, or he doesn't, and you were exactly where you were before. And it doesn't really change much of anything, at the end of it. So I think that was the right decision for them as well.
110%. The other top three names that I remember, talking about in trade rumors this past week, and one of them's been for a while now. The Diamondbacks do not trade Jake McCarthy or Alec Thomas or Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Those three names have been definitely rumored for a while. I know some of these teams feel really good defensively. I know Alec Thomas, that would be the reason why he would be on the move, is for a team that needs a defensive center. Jake, he just has not performed well this season. And that's why I think the Diamondbacks were going to eventually try and move off of him. I know some teams would like to take a chance knowing that he is a good player and could bounce back somewhere else. Lourdes Gurriel has had a rough stretch recently. I mean, he's had a roller coaster of a season. There have been times where I'll look at his last 7 games and I'm, oh my gosh, he's slashing over 500. He's hitting 360, and then times where he's hitting 150. And so Lourdes has had a roller coaster of a season. I think his inconsistency at the plate has turned teams off, and he's got a big price tag as well. And so Lourdes is staying in Arizona, another fan favorite. Everyone loves his whole the Pina power. And so if Dimebag's got to bank on Lourdes being that consistent bat. That's one of the few things when he first came in here for Arizona, he brought that consistency. This season, just he hasn't had it.
Yeah. So got the back half of the season now, and I mean, pending some very unforeseen run where they kind of make a push at this, I still feel like they got a lot of interesting things to kind of watch and kind of figure out what pieces you want to keep, what pieces kind of you could build around, and you still have the young core. And these are all going to be valuable at bats. These are going to be moments where these guys can kind of develop. And getting all of these prospects, especially those pitchers, I just feel like, all things considered, especially considering this division, all things considered, I felt like this was a really good decision on their part and a good trade. as tough as it is for any fan base to watch their team somewhat press the reset button, it's never fun. I don't feel like this was a full on reset. Like you kept the guys that are your young core. Maybe you just on the margins you were able to move off some pieces and kind of get some things. I just feel like overall, I felt like this was a really good trade deadline kind of push for the Diamondbacks and the pieces that they sold high and they kept the guys that were low and got prospects back, which I think is exactly what they needed to do.
If you have a 1-2 punch like Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, you got to build them around them. You keep Geraldo Perdomo, you keep Gabriel Moreno. So yeah, you are going to build around those guys. The rest of this season, I wouldn't. You're going to see the Tristan English, Blaze Alexander, Adrian Del Castillo. You got to see what these young guys have.
You're gonna see some interesting lineups for sure.
Definitely, and a lot of these guys have been waiting for this playing time. So it'll be interesting to see for the next few months who steps up to the plate, no pun intended, and gets the Diamondbacks going a little bit. It'll be interesting to see, if they do make a push, who's going to be behind that? Is it because if Cattell and Corbin get some help, you can see what chaos can ensue.
Yeah.
I think this trade deadline, it opened a lot of people's eyes to the way baseball is slowly more and more becoming, with the Padres and the Mets just going insane and getting name after name. Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, Odalis Garcia. I mean, it was insane. The Padres didn't move off Dylan Cease. So there's a lot of things that the Padres and the Mets are doing where I just think the Diamondbacks have to realize if you want to go out, you have to pay. You're going to have to pay to play in this league. And if you're going to want to go out and get these guys, let's say free agency comes back around. Are they going to pay Gino? Are they going to pay Merrill? That's, I think, a couple of the biggest questions that the Diamondbacks have to look at going forward. I think Kendrick has shown that he's willing to give the right contracts, out. Mike Hazen has done a great job getting guys to buy in at a certain price. Ketel Marte could be making a lot more for a lot of other teams, but he's not, because he loves Arizona and he wants to be here. And him and Mike Hazen have a good relationship. Him and Torey Lovello have a good relationship. And what Mike Hazen has been able to do, I think, will help in a way longer grand scheme here, because Kendrick has actually been investing more into this Diamondbacks team than he ever has. Mm-hmm. So with that going forward, yeah, we were sellers at they were sellers at the deadline, and what the Diamondbacks were able to do has definitely kind of shifted things around the next couple of years. But I think Hazen will get Kendrick to want to give out those contracts. And if the Diamondbacks can get those free agency signings, it'll just, those trade deadlines, what happened for the Padres and the Mets, that'll happen for the Diamondbacks coming up soon. Kind of remember when Devin Booker said he wanted every other stars to come play with him, and then he ends up bringing a bunch of stars. It's kind of how Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, if those guys keep on the right track, there could be guys that are going to want to come play in the desert.
That'll be good. Well, good times are ahead, it looks like, at least. Might be not tomorrow, but, if distant good times are around. Trade deadline, no shortage of excitement this year, Ben, and it was a fun one to kind of watch unfold a little bit there. Busy one, but appreciate your insight today, man.
Oh, thanks anytime.